Hey all, here OS Reviews. It's always fun taking a look at unique smartphones, so today we are checking out the Fujitsu F03K Easy Phone. As the name hints at, this is primarily geared at the elderly demographic, providing simpler icons for an easy-to-use experience, but this is also a Japanese smartphone branded with the carrier Docomo, and similarly, Fujitsu as a brand, we don't really see making smartphones anymore in North America, though they still produce devices like this in their local Japanese market. So we'll take a closer look here, primarily because the UI I think is quite interesting. It looks utterly unfamiliar compared to stock Android, reminding me of something closer to Windows Phone, although you can actually find some of these products imported floating around on sites like Amazon and eBay for as low as $20 to $30 a pop, so very cheap. This model was released back in 2018. We have a 4.5-inch 720p HD OLED display, kind of a surprise on a more entry-level phone compared to IPS LCD being much more common, and like most Japanese smartphones, even a budget one like this is rated to be IP68 for waterproof. It's powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 625 octa-core processor clocked at 2 GHz coupled with 2 GB of RAM. So the Snapdragon 625 was actually a very popular chip just a few years back. Companies like Xiaomi used it very commonly on their mid-range devices. Otherwise, the phone came in various colors, including blue, and this is the gold version, also came in pink, so quite customizable. The rear here housing a 13 megapixel camera, quite basic with an LED flash. It also comes with the standards like NFC, GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth that we've come to expect. The left-hand spine features a volume rocker and also a power key, and as a slightly more compact phone, again at 4.5 inches, this is very easy to maneuver with one hand. Emphasis was put on making something practical as opposed to being super flashy or over the top. What wasn't so great though was the mono speaker that was placed on the rear, although on the other side there was a very interesting antenna that you can pull out for accessing over-the-air TV, which is still accessible in countries like Japan, and even a camera shutter key there on the side. The entire phone, by the way, is crafted out of a polycarbonate plastic. It's going to be more shock absorbing if you drop it, a little bit more durable as well. There's even a lanyard strap at the bottom here featuring just a micro USB port for charging. Would have preferred Type-C, but it is what it is. But at the very least, the back cover can even be swapped out, and the battery can be interchanged. It takes a Nanos SIM card, and a micro SD card slot as well can be used to supplement the 16 gigs of built-in storage, along with a selfie camera on the top, which is around 5 megapixels, ambient light sensor earpiece, and then just a simple home key that you can also double tap to open up multitasking. So the lock screen here immediately just looks really different with an oversized clock widget. There's even a pedometer. There is no biometric fingerprint scanner, however, which is one hardware feature that I think Fujitsu probably should have added even back when this thing was new. Granted, swiping up, we can unlock into the UI after entering a password or PIN, and we have this tile-based interface. What I do like is the color theme of gold even matches the exterior of the phone. Some of these widgets can also open up when you tap on them, acting as folders to expand, and you do have all the standard Google utilities on here, including the Play Store, Gmail, Google Maps, Google Photos, so on and so forth. Some of the icons, though, are in Japanese on this particular carrier-branded variant, and there is this kind of playful little animated widget there at the top as well that is essentially Docomo's version of the Google Assistant, helping you with some queries, but you have to speak Japanese. Again, very playful touches overall. You can also program over here up to 9 preset phone numbers, so someone can easily tap to dial. And then further down below, there are sections that you can expand on just by tapping, like folders, including one here for additional entertainment, as well as additional tools. QR code scanner, calculator can also be found. And as you can tell, Docomo and Fujitsu have definitely customized this thing, and it looks utterly unfamiliar compared to stock Android, but it is what it is. Additional emergency services, quick entertainment and games, additional transit, and then health can also be found there at the very bottom. Now, just doing a quick comparison with aforementioned Windows Phone OS, which is another kind of ill-fated mobile operating system, you can see how the kind of tile UI bears a bit of resemblance to what we see here. So Microsoft's design philosophy was very intuitive and easy to use. I'm also going to pull up another Japanese phone, which we took a look at several years back. This is called the InfoBar series. It's another Docomo branded exclusive exclusive. And in contrast, this phone is manufactured by Kyocera, and it has much more of a designer-centric look, including all the hotkeys at the bottom. The phone is also made of metal and has a more powerful Snapdragon 800 series processor. So it's more of a high-end phone compared to a elderly-centric device, which is lower end. However, it also bears resemblance in terms of this level of customization on the UI with these floating tiles. So part of the irony is when Android was starting out, a lot of folks wanted a cleaner software experience that gets rid of the bloat. But these days, as smartphones are a dime a dozen and every single device just looks super similar to one another, I'm starting to reappreciate having a more customized user interface that kind of sets it apart from the crowd. So just a quick look at the camera here. At least it is autofocus and relatively quick to snap a shot, but obviously not the forte of this phone, nor will you find particularly impressive modes and options on here, but you can, again, just snap things quickly, looking good enough for preserving some quick memories, as well as scanning in documents. Don't expect miracles, but at the very least, it is good enough, again, to get you by in a pinch. So here we also have some included sample images that describes what the phone looks like, again, in the blue colored variant. And at least the screen here with that OLED nature does have excellent contrast. It's actually a pretty good panel, especially for this budget price range, I have to say, despite not having the highest PPI. But just keep in mind that the size of the screen is smaller as well. So as long as you're not really pixel peeping, you'll be completely fine. There's no ultra fast refresh rate on here either, even though Fujitsu actually were one of the first manufacturers to play around with high refresh rate screens a few years back. But all in all, again, these are, I think, worthwhile trade-offs for a phone that is primarily going after endurance and making something a little bit more accessible and affordable as well. Jumping back into the main home screen, we can just tap on that one home key or double tap, as aforementioned, to pull up the multitasking. The 2 GB of RAM, I think, is a little bit on the stingy side, even though, yes, this is obviously not targeted at tech geeks that will be doing a ton of gaming. They just need something quick for accessing core functions, communicating, and that's it. But there are still moments here and there where you'll feel some occasional jumpiness. Primarily when you're first booting up the phone, it takes around 20 seconds or so for everything to finish initiating in the background, and the phone's performance becomes a little bit more responsive after that. It just takes a few extra seconds for things to kind of first wake up. Quick demo of what watching back a video and the built-in speakers sound like next. So again, I think the speakerphone, at least it is loud enough, so if you are making calls, for example, it's not too problematic, but definitely not quite as immersive as on some newer handsets that have a stereo speaker, but gets the job done. And again, surprisingly, the screen is really not bad for such a low-end device. Similarly, the Snapdragon 625 is still decent when it comes to doing some quick web browsing, as you can tell here. It's not going to be the fastest in the world. You can tell by a little bit of that stutteriness, especially on more graphically demanding pages with lots of content, but it's still usable as long as you have a bit of patience. It's really that RAM that I think even on an elderly or kid-centric phone should be at least 3 gigs, if not 4 gigs, to be a little bit more usable here in 2023, since apps in general just take up more space and memory than ever, though you can still find, of course, some ultra low-end phones, maybe running on Android Go, that have less RAM than that. But this thing is running on a, again, pretty heavy skin on a full version of Android. Since we do have access to the Google Play Store, it does mean that you can install still pretty much any app that you would want, including games and productivity tools, although just keep in mind, again, the hardware is relatively entry-level these days with more limited memory. The original intent and design definitely wasn't geared towards gaming, so it's probably going to fare best with things that are super lightweight. So that is more or less it as far as a quick look at this Fujitsu F03K. Again, a pretty unconventional phone. It makes me reminisce and nostalgic for the days when phones in general were more compact and had more personality and customization going on. With that being said, this particular handset I wouldn't necessarily recommend, I think, for customers here in Europe and North America, just because of kind of the heavy regionalization of the Japanese content and apps going on, even though the processor as well as the display, I think, are all quite decent. Especially that energy efficient chip means that the battery on here, though not huge, can last pretty comfortably through a full day or two's use before needing to be topped up. Granted, one potential use case, if you are willing to experiment and play around with it, could be as a dedicated MP3 or MP4 player, since this thing does have a standard 3.5mm headphone jack there at the top. Overall, definitely a quirky and character-filled phone. So you can check out more details if interested in the links down below, as well as other Japanese Docomo branded devices that we have covered previously on our channel. But for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Fujitsu F03K.